Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the 34th Annual Peer Mediation Conference, Adventures in Peer Mediation. The Peer Mediation Conference has been bringing together youth peer mediators ages 8 to 18 for the past, well, definitely over 34 years now, or 30 years. We're going on 34. This is the first year the conference has gone virtual to connect peer mediators around Hawaii and others aspiring to develop their own peer mediation program. My name is Jose Barzola from the Matsunaga Institute for Peace at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. This year's Peer Mediation Conference is brought to you as a wonderful and amazing collaborative by 22 different organizations, which you saw a slide of earlier around Hawaii that support this conference that is spread out throughout the month of April. The Peer Mediation Conference consists of an opening panel, 16 skill workshops, and a closing panel. You can learn more about all the events at matsunagainstitute.eventbrite.com. Today's event will focus on the skill workshop on the 5-step process with Annaleah Atkinson. Thank you for joining us to learn about peer mediation skills. This session is a wonderful opportunity to learn how to process what you've observed through your feelings and thoughts, and then asking for what you want in a difficult situation can be very hard or confusing, but it can be learned and practiced until it becomes an easy peasy tool to be used when needed. We already do parts of it sometimes, but deepening them and using them together makes it great. Annaleah Atkinson has been trained as a mediator in 1998 after her son became trained as a peer mediator, and she was so impressed with what he'd learned. She then co-taught peer mediation and volunteered as a mediator for the Kauai Economic Opportunity Mediation Program. She directed the Kauai Teen Court Program and taught peer mediation in the schools in Kauai. She became the KEO Mediation Program Director and is soon to retire actually at the end of this week. So it is quite a treat that we have her with us today, and we're very thankful for her time and just everything she will be, knowledge she'll be bestowing upon us. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Annaleah.
Hi, I so appreciate, anybody who wants to work towards peace in the world. It's the one thing that the world maybe doesn't have enough of, and I really honor everybody who does that. So the 5-step process is a way to integrate. I've worked with kids. I didn't know if I was going to have a lot of kids or adults or people who work with kids, but I didn't learn it until I was 30. So it's effective anytime that you learn it. My husband and I'll just have a little introduction to it. Well, we weren't even married at that time, but we were considering getting married. And we really liked each other, but we were having some problems communicating. And so we went to a therapist who helped us and basically gave us this process, or I've simplified it, but she would have us work on these different things. And I found when I was working with kids in teen court, sometimes I'd have 2 kids who had gotten busted at school for a fight. And so that was my opportunity to mediate with them, and go through these processes. And I found that kids sometimes couldn't understand. They really weren't able to figure out what had gotten them so mad, and they weren't able to figure out what to do with it. So emotions sometimes is how we would start in the middle. So I think Jose is going to put up the 5-step process on the screen. That's what we talked about. And I can go ahead with you after we go there when that happens, or I'll just keep going.
Here we go.
There it is. Okay. And that part, I want the actual, there we go. That's what I want to say. Okay. So I love teen court because it uses restorative justice. I think that's going to be the way that all the judiciary are going now. I hope that is going to be that, rather than everybody going to court, paying fees, paying lawyers, serving time. I think we're going to go to that. So in a nutshell, what we want to do is take from facts. Okay, so now we can go to the first one, Jose, the physical, the first slide. All right, so it's really hard for people to argue with facts that you have. And so we talk about what we're seeing, what we're feeling, what we're hearing, whatever it is that you're concerned about. And then we let the other person know what that is. So for an example, and this is one that I actually had with my husband. One time I was coming back, he was coming back from work. I had a handicapped child at home and a pre-puberty teenage boy at the time from a previous marriage. And I really looked forward to it when he came back. And that was our kind of a special time. And what happened was he came back this day and he was just like really distant. He was, you know, I would try to say something and he would just, you know, kind of, I won't say blow me off, but just gave me no energy back. And that was just really unlike him. So I was feeling difficult, you know, not feeling like he was really cutting out. And so what I said to him was, hey, I'm seeing that you're ignoring me. You're treating me coldly. You're not responding to what I'm saying. And then you go to the second part, which is perceptual, the interpretation. So what that was saying to me, how I perceived that was that maybe I'd done something mad, or maybe I'd made him mad at me. I was uncomfortable. What have I done to make you so aggravated? Because I was starting to feel like, hey, I matter too. I matter too. And he'd really been good about understanding what my day was like too. So he just said, no. When I checked my perception out, he said, oh, he was a therapist as well. And he said, I just heard the worst case of child abuse from one of my clients. And he said, and I'm still processing this. I'm still processing this. So rather than me assuming that he was mad at me, I checked my perception out and I realized that I was completely wrong. That turned me around. That completely turned me around so that I was then saying, okay, well, let me bring you dinner. I'm sorry, you know, just relax, you know, I'll continue carrying on. And so instead of having a kind of what could have been an altercation or even worse or something, it was just, we got clear and we were able to work it out and I was his ally instead of being a possible disputant. So I could say to him, when I see, hear, or feel you, also parents, you know, kids do this all the time. You're being angry at me. Well, what does that mean? Okay, so let's define, tell me what that means in mediation. Well, he gives me stink eye. Well, he doesn't respond when I talk to him. He just looks straight at me and it's as if he's seeing right through me. Those are things that you feel bad about. Or I sit down at the lunch table and you get up and move. That's a physical thing. These are observable facts. These are facts that you can give to the other side and then share how you feel about them. So in the case, let's go to the second slide, Jose. Okay. So we already talked about, you just want to follow up with that. I think it means my daughter, who was special, I love the way she thought. People would look at her sometimes because she was special and she would go, they're looking at me. And she would get all excited about that. Like, in other words, they're caring about me. They're looking at me. So it's whatever's going on in a person's head at the time. So what we want people to understand, though, is that what you interpret isn't necessarily what happened. We actually had a mediation recently, and in it, a a woman was having difficulty. I'm, not giving any names or anything, married to this person. And she wanted to know basically whose job is it going to be to pay the bills, and every time she would try to talk, her ex would blow up. Okay, so finally he wouldn't go to counseling. So she thought, well, maybe mediation would work. She told him that, and he immediately thought, okay, so I guess we're just going to go get a separation now. That wasn't her intention at all. In fact, she was just thinking that the mediation would help them deal with what was going on. So I am the director of the mediation program and also did the intake. And I told the mediators, you have two potential mediations going on here. One is going to be, how do we talk to each other? She would apparently, she would put sticky notes all around the house, and that drove him nuts. But anyway, he wasn't listening to her, so she didn't know how to get in. So they wrote down, I can't tell you what the agreement was, but they came up with a plan for how they were going to communicate to each other. And that was what the 3 hours of mediation was about. And then they made an appointment to come and work on the debts and assets the next time they come. So that's checking things out. There you go. Okay, third level. And this is the one kids sometimes get here. They don't know how they got here. They don't know where to go from here. So let's say, here's an example from a child, okay? You'll probably think, in my family, it's okay. So one sister comes home and she sees one of her favorite jackets on the bed, and there's dirt on her sister's bed. She comes home, she'd left it hanging up in the closet. The sister came, apparently, this is what she's thinking, used it, and the cuffs were dirty. The cuffs were dirty. And so she hit the roof. Okay. And so she's like, hey, you used my jacket, you messed it up, it's not clean, you don't have a right to touch my things. And she's going off. Well, what happens, you probably know this, when people hear someone accusing them, they really stop listening carefully and they start defending. So it wasn't working. So, okay, let's go through this. Let's go through this process. Tell her what you saw. Well, I came home and I think it was her favorite jacket is on your bed and the cuffs are all dirty. And I think that means that you took my jacket out and wore it and got it all dirty. And I didn't give you permission. And I don't like that you did that. And I'm angry about that. Okay. So we're going to do two different scenarios. First one is, oh, I found it outside. I guess the dog had gotten it and I rescued it and I just put it on my bed because I don't know where you really keep it. All right. So here so now the sister isn't angry with this anymore. But let's go on and we'll try it again. So now we're saying, okay, that makes me feel violated. All right. Same scenario. I see the jacket on the bed, the cuffs are dirty, and I feel like you violated, me. And so the sister says, yes, I did. I took it out of the closet because you look so pretty when you wear it. And I didn't mean to get it all dirty. I'm sorry. We can wash it. All right. But the sister is still feeling angry because emotions come from beliefs that we have, mental beliefs that we have. You know what presses your buttons, but if you take it back, then you can find out what it is. So for example, for me, if I see somebody abusing a child, oh man, I'm furious. Sometimes I have intervened, whatever. But that comes from my belief that children deserve to be loved and cherished and played with and protected. That's a belief that I have. So what we want then is to sort out what that belief is. So what was the belief that that sister was having? She had a belief that she deserved to have her clothes and her space and that they not be touched by somebody else. Okay, so that was the belief that she was carrying. All right, so now let's go down. I've taken the beliefs behind emotions, and we're going to talk some more about this on Thursday's group, where I'm actually dealing a lot with emotions and feelings, because I found that some of the kids don't permit themselves to feel certain emotions, and other kids don't know how to handle their emotions or where they come from. But anyway, so we want to go down to the belief about this emotional one. Okay, so can you go down to 4, Jose, the beliefs? And that is going to depend upon what your life has taught you. You know, and this is, we hear stories about two family or a husband and wife getting together. And in one family, let's say they're very quiet, the way they deal with problems that come up. And in another family, they're shouting all the time and they're using their hands, and, you know, shouting doesn't mean anything. And I went into a family like that. I was one from the quiet family, but I went out to eat with a friend of mine, and they're, you know, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And she's screaming at her kid, and the kid's like looking up at her, no fear, because that's what the kid knew. So mental beliefs come from a person's personal code, depending upon what they've grown up with. And so sometimes we just have to understand that. That's why learning about different cultural practices or how your neighbors react or whatever is important. So anyway, so the mental beliefs, I believe this, and that's my code, and I want you to know this. So then that goes down to the resolution. And the resolution is number 5. And that is what I'm asking you to do, or what I need for you to do. And in this case, it would be to please leave my things in my space. And what I will do is the very same to you. And so we want to be clear, kind, and understandable when we get to this state. That's what mediators do. You know, we take them through a lot of this, you know, not necessarily 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but we ask feeling words, and what do you believe would make you happy, or what is it that you want? And sometimes you can say, well, I want this. Or people will come to a mediation, I want this and I want this, and they're not going. So then what we have to do is say, well, why do you want these things? And in our separate sessions, we can work it out with the person. Why is this so important to you? What's your belief about that? Or what are you thinking about this? And so then the person gets to do that, and you do that with the other person. And then they come in the joint session again, and they're understanding more about how it is and what it is that's working. So normally, I would ask for examples, you know, for people to have stories. I don't know if we have them in the chat or anything, but you will find that if you just start thinking about going through, the number one thing I would say is check your perceptions. I had another one, and it was the same thing. The husband wanted to have, the wife wanted to have a mediation about debts and assets. again, a different one, and the husband immediately thinks this is not court ordered. Oh, well then, she's wanting to divorce me. And it wasn't that at all. It's just that she wanted to know where she stood and how things were, and just get some clarity, because they had an accountant and she was beginning not to trust the accountant for his business. In fact, that accountant had left. So there was a whole different perception that she had, that she didn't want to open up the can of worms until she was in mediation. We are in an amazing place, that's silent neutral, that caring neutral. I tell people that I know, when you mediate, if you could, it would be so nice if you had this, as you're speaking, this is what you're exuding to people. You matter. And it doesn't matter what you are, you just matter. And I want you to know that I value you and I want to help you come to peace here. So let me see, are there any where do I go? Into the chat here? It says 14. Am I supposed to go to that? Help, I think I did something wrong. All right, let's see.
I'm here. I can help you.
Okay, you got it.
Yes. Well, we haven't had any stories so far, but we did have a question from the audience. Someone asked, do you find that people get defensive with the quote unquote feeling words in a discussion?
Not if it's their feelings. I haven't found, especially if they've already told them where they come from. It's like, I'm feeling this because I believe that, and I observed that happening, and that triggered that for me. We use the word trigger. That's a good word. I used that when I was working with, I basically taught my kids anger management when I had teen court. I just found it online, and, what's triggering you? What are some of the things? Get to know them, your own, and where then do they come from? What's the belief that causes those triggers, So yeah, I'll take any questions, because then they always go in, a different direction, or a further direction. We could go over them again, all of them. If anybody has questions, they're laid out so that an 11-year-old, or, I had them for junior high, middle school to high school, were when I taught peer mediation, which I've done in North Carolina. I started there and then here. But anyway.
A little bit about, so you shared earlier, well, in your bio, about how your son went into mediation training, and then you went into it. Have you ever had the opportunity to co-mediate together?
My son? No, no, we didn't. That would be great. He lives in Virginia right now, so we haven't been together for a long time. And he did it through his high school.
Okay.
But I went to his teacher, and his mediation teacher. I said, "This is fantastic." She worked for the Mediation Center of Asheville in Asheville, North Carolina, and taught adults and kids, in the city and the county, Buncombe County. And then I ended up co-teaching with her.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
And I became a mediator and then co-taught with her. It was fun.
I'm getting the assumption that your son doesn't currently mediate then, or does he still utilize the skill sets at least?
He doesn't officially mediate, no. But what he does is he's a bartender. So you wouldn't believe what the stories and the things that he deals with. So and people come to the bar. He's been in 3 different restaurants, and he's got his little following of people. So I figure he must be doing something right.
That's wonderful. I mean, it just probably shows he has really good people skills and communicates.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is important because, one of the words I think that was big in the 70s was congruent. You want to be congruent so that your body and your mind and your spirit and your emotions and everything is all working together. And this kind of helps get that going. Yeah. Well, Nuria, I get that. You know, that's funny. I bet you'd be good too. Be great. So
Uh,
anyway,
no, thank you. So I personally have some questions as far as a mediator. Are there any good tips that you have for like when you're not, because you're dealing with lots of people's emotions, and you have these steps to handle people's emotions.
yeah.
So what do you do to take care of yourself and handle your own emotions? I mean, just because there has to be some self-care involved.
Yeah, I'm retiring on Thursday. But I get so high when I mediate. I mean, almost always, you know, there's an agreement or there's at least a light that goes off. You know, I did a case and I can share this one. It was a court case. So, you know, it's just me and it was a TRO. So I listened to one, we get TROs at Kauai. We go right to court and we get a TRO and we're expected to get them done in a short amount of time with the confidentiality agreements, all that stuff. So I had one, and one of the things that you have to tell them is like, you know, the burden of proof is on you if you're going to charge this person with harassment, you know, and it's like that. So do you have either the physical evidence? Hello, point one. Do you have a witness that saw something? Do you have a tape that he made? Or did you record him saying, you know, okay, she goes, oh yeah, I do. I have a recording of him saying, I know we're not with workplace, I want to shove a monkey wrench up your ASS.
Got it.
And I'm like, I said, oh my gosh, you have a recording of that? And she said, yes, I do. And there are other things that I have a recording of. I need to pursue this. You know, I really want a TRO on him. Because, you know, when we go to court, we have a choice. They accept the TRO. All right, I'll do it. I'm fighting the TRO. I want my day in court. Or we'll dissolve it and we'll write our own agreement. That's when we all go, yay, we're going to rewrite it, because then nobody gets a felony or a misdemeanor if they break the agreement. But anyway, so the man comes in and he's telling me all these wonderful things that he's done, right? You know, we know that. That's the opposite of saying, I need your approval. I'm like, well, we don't judge you. We don't judge you. But I just need for you to know that the burden of proof is going to be on blank. And she said that she has a tape of you saying, I'm going to shove a monkey wrench up. And I just said it. That was it. And he goes, yeah, I have that. You know, and his affect was like, whoa, okay. All right. I said, well, you know, and I'm not going to sign any TRO. I said, well, we're done here. Because my thought, you know, I didn't feel it was a failure. I felt like the judge needed to hear this. You know, sometimes you just, so sometimes then when we don't get the case, it goes to trial. And so the trial then was a couple of weeks later, I guess, and I couldn't go because I was working here, but another person went. And when it came to the judge brought it up, he said, you know, do you have your evidence? And he just said, no, I accept the TRO, which is what I had sort of hoped he would have done. So sometimes you don't get it then, but they think about it. And I've had people say, I just want you to know, I couldn't agree about it then, but it was good advice. And this is what we're doing now. You know, so it's, you never know where your energy goes. So I just trust the best.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And sometimes you just kind of have to feel out, I think, the vibe, the energy in the room. And that's exactly what you did. And you went with your gut. And thank you.
That doesn't mean that I haven't had, you know, difficulty with feeling exhausted after a mediation, particularly if I've got, you know, a lot going on with folks, you know,
Yeah.
it's been strong. So.
Well, I commend you for the many years that you've, you know, led KAEO, and been heading it up over there. And I know you joke about retirement, but our audience may not know that you've been talking about retirement for some time. So it just goes to show also the passion that you have for the field. And I wouldn't be surprised if you'd still be a volunteer mediator.
Oh, I'm going to be a volunteer mediator. That's going to be good. And I don't know. I think it'd be great to have a core of mediators. 4 mediators from KEO are going into the homeless encampments, or they're acknowledging, they just have a thing that says all ears, and all ears meaning that they will listen. They can't say, they're not going to do mediators, but they believe in empathetic listening. How many times when people are telling their stories to us in a separate session that they get it, they get what they really want, they understand the belief, they understand how to ask for their needs to be met. And so it's such a simple thing, you know, to just go ahead and say what you've observed, because people can't ask any, you know, it's your process. Perceptual, what are you thinking? What do you feel? Whatever. So anyway.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time today. I think the audience is good and good at it. There's no other additional questions for today, but I just want to thank you, Annaleah, definitely providing us this wonderful skill workshop and for sharing more upcoming workshops. Actually, the next one's coming up in a few days, and I truly appreciate your insights into peer mediation.
And this is what we're going to be working on next time. It's like feelings and needs that we all have that kids don't necessarily get, adults don't necessarily get this, or kids don't, you know, like I would say, well, what do you need? Oh, I don't need anything. You know, I'm like, oh, well, you're different from the whole rest of the world, you know?
It is most definitely a skill set to be able to acknowledge the emotions that you have or are feeling, and just be able to talk about that, because I don't think everyone can properly put it into words. And so it's definitely an ongoing process of development.
Yes. And the neutrality is really important. You know, they really need, and there, last year I attended a workshop that was put on by the CADR and legal aid. And one of the judges who mediates says, in my introductory opening statement, I say, I believe that you're right. And I believe that you're right. And it's because you're going from your perceptions. You're going from the beliefs that you have about what you've seen.
Yep.
And our job is to help them see the other side. When I was first learning mediation over here, let's say, you know, I had a mediator who said, okay, here, this is what you're seeing. Okay. And tell me what you're seeing. And I'd say, well, I see a sticker that says you matter in every color of the rainbow with you know, and the gray and the gay on the end, you know, and he said, no, I'm not seeing that. This is what I see. And so in other words, it's the same thing, but it's a different perspective. From my side, I'm seeing this. From his side, he's seeing that. And so the mediator's job is to help each other see the other side and understand. I remember when I finally figured out, my dad, who was a World War II decorated Air Force pilot who flew back an airplane that was on fire. I mean, you know, and he would have his opinions about things and I'd have mine. And I remember saying, well, Dad, I completely respect how you think about that with your experiences and everything you've done, but I don't have those experiences. I haven't lived in that way. I have different ones. And so I respect and I hear you, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and make my own decisions. Oh my God, no arguing at all after, like, you know, decades. So it was a good thing. It was a good thing.
I'm glad you were able to reach that point of dialogue with your family.
I know. Never give up. All you have to say is, yeah, I appreciate where you're coming. I get that, you know. Man, I could feel that way too if I had that experience. We'll never know how he felt, you know. Yeah. But anyway, So these stickers, were we going to put, I'm giving these away because I believe that in the subconscious mind of people, what they see makes a difference. It goes in. So if this is on your car, somebody behind you in traffic is going to say, oh, because whoever is reading this, this came out like after Black Lives Matter, and they didn't, you couldn't just say Black Lives Matter or white. It's like, oh, let's make it personal. You matter, with the heart in the center there. And this one, oh, that's at the end. Sorry. Or, what you put out in the world, you're going to get back. As you sow, you reap. People don't understand that sometimes, but start putting your hearts out, you're going to get love back, and after all, love does succeed. I've gone through a mediation with two brothers, and they were fighting and everything, and then finally one of them just caved, and he goes, he's my brother and I love him. The other, oh yeah, my handicapped daughter was a hugger. She loved everybody. She would go and she would people would get in line for her hugs. She was adorable. When she was 23, she still had a mind of a 7-year-old. But anyway, so she would have her friends at the Pizza Hut and at the malls and different things. They go, Mary. And I remember saying to her, Mary, you are a love millionaire. And now it's been like a decade or two later, so we got to go up to zillionaires. But I looked up zillionaires in the dictionary, and zillionaire says it's a large amount that implies you'll never run out of it. So we're love zillionaires. And it is our job to shine. We want everybody to shine. So anyway, I would be willing to send a set of these to whoever asks for it. And so you have my email, right?
You want me to put your KEO email in the chat?
Could you put my personal, since I'll only be a KEO?
Right, that's right. Okay.
Through the 15th, so I can do the second one of these things.
So for anybody in the audience, there's Annaleah's personal emails. Please feel free to email her, and she'd be more than happy to,
Yes, if you want I would be so glad, because I think that I tell you, I have Love Succeeds, We're Love Zillionaires, and You Matter on my car. And I've parked a few times and gotten out, and somebody says, I needed to read your car today. I'm so thankful, I really needed to remember this, and it's like, it didn't cost, it was just so easy,
And also for anybody
like
in the audience, if you do all decide to email her and you put it in your car, at some point you might run into each other, and then you'll be like, we were at that skills workshop together. It's wonderful to officially meet you.
Well, I was giving them away before I got called back to work at KEO again after my first retirement. And then I've seen them on cars, and it gets me really happy to see them,
Wonderful. Well,
you never know who's getting.
Thank you so much for just your positive, vibrant personality, and truly appreciate your insights into peer mediation, your approach as a peace builder, conflict resolver, just your passion, your kindness. Thank you. And last but not least, thank you to all of you all for joining us today's webinar.
Yes.
We greatly appreciate you as well. To learn about peer mediation programs throughout Hawaii at the 34th Annual Peer Mediation Conference, Adventures in Peer Mediations, to this year's theme. Just a friendly reminder, we still have 13 more events left in the conference.
Yeah.
They put the email, it's matsunagiinstitute.eventbrite.com. You can learn more about them. So we look forward to seeing you all at future events. Thank you again, everybody.